Thus far in this series, we've spoken about 75% of the big four. We've talked about reasons why people hate Megadeth, Metallica, and Slayer, which has definitely gotten a lot of attention, and I still don't think people fully understand that this is based off of, public opinion as opposed to just one man's view. But either way, we need to finish this task, and you guys, the fans, have been the most vocal about this. On each and every video, it seems like I see multiple comments saying, what are 5 reasons why people hate Anthrax? Do you think you can actually make that list? I don't know if it's possible. While others say, 5 reasons why people hate Anthrax. Should be easy for you, considering they're easy to hate. I don't really understand. I guess this is a band that is truly one that causes division, so let's rear up the gears and get moving. Let's take a look and examine 5 reasons why people hate Anthrax. And we, of course, begin with number 5, which is Joey Belladonna's vocals. This surprised me a lot, considering one that we're going to talk about later, first of all, but secondly, also based on the classic era material for Anthrax, considering Joey's vocals coupled with the aggressive music that you heard in the background is part of the reason why the band has so much in the way of energy. They were just an energetic kind of goofball group that were able to really make a lot of people happy. Not to mention that aggressive noise in the background that really coupled with his vocals seemed to go together very nicely, as opposed to really feel like one doesn't suit the other. Now, this is one where most folks will take a listen to a couple of Joey tracks, either from the classic age, either that or otherwise, and just determine to themselves that this is just not the sound that they're looking for. This is not necessarily who they envision really leading a group that has this aggressive edge. It's something that has a little bit more of a punk derivative, but at the same time also emanates and chambers through with the speed metal, or even some skate metal, as some people have even called it. They consider these guys to be so goofy they're skate metal. I don't even know what the fuck that means, but whatever. They say that Joey's vocals are the reason why they can't get into the group, and I can't say that I agree with them, considering the classic era of material is probably among some of their strongest work, considering they had a long period of time where the work was not quite as good. Like I said, we'll get to that. Number 4 is Scott Ian. This is another sort of surprise. A lot of these have actually been surprises for me. I expected some other things to perhaps be the reasons why people dislike this band. But Scott Ian is one where I guess whenever you examine it, it makes a little bit of sense. Scott's willing to give a soundbite every now and again. He's definitely one that if the Mount Rushmore of Shut the Fuck Up had a sister exhibit that was known as like the Niagara Falls of Please Be Quiet, there's a good chance that Scott Ian would be somebody who was going over the falls in a barrel. But he's one that's definitely willing to speak his opinion about things, and this has been one that has gotten him into a little bit of hot water with fans, but he's not afraid to speak his mind. And that's something that should be respected, as opposed to something that should be his death knell. However, the one thing I didn't expect to see were people saying that Scott Ian sold out because he did a lot of the the music lists or countdowns or whatever for VH1. Personally, I would think that would be a great honor, and plus, his inclusion on a lot of those lists actually made them a little bit more tolerable, a little bit more something I was willing to watch, considering it definitely provided a different perspective comparative to what you got from everybody else. But considering he's become one of the more recognizable faces in metal, and his beard is certainly one of the most recognizable in metal, it's definitely one where he's going to get those sellout words potentially thrown about him, all things considered. Number 3, they put rap in metal. Oh yeah, we were talking about Bring the Noise. Whenever they decided to team up with Public Enemy and actually put something out that had a little bit of a hip-hop flavor, it was actually not really the first thing that they'd ever done, but the other one that they did was I'm the Man, and I guess what I don't get is why this is such a sin. Bring the Noise, first of all, has that heaviness and that great exterior to it. It was at a time where hip-hop wasn't like it is today, It's not like they were teaming up with, Lil Wayne or something like that. No, this is at a time whenever hip-hop was in its earliest fashions and was really just starting to make some waves. And these were individuals that were making waves based off of something a lot different than what you see here in 2016. Some of the topicality that they spoke about is something that you see today more from say, Kendrick Lamar, or somebody that has a little bit more social consciousness. But either way, whenever these two came together and formed this song, it was definitely one that was destined to be a hit. That crossover definitely showcased that a marriage between hip-hop and heavy metal was certainly a possibility. Now, of course, many people of the modern age would hate that, considering they lived through nu metal, or they've heard stories about nu metal, or they have an opinion about nu metal, and they look back and see that Anthrax is one of the founders of this and immediately dismiss them. But if you dismiss I'm the Man, you're retarded, considering that song is actual hilarity. It's something that showcased the goofy nature of this group. They didn't take themselves totally seriously, for one, but for two, they were also willing to do a little bit of experimentation. In that one song, they did more experimentation than Slayer has done in their entire career. And that's one of the main reasons why, if, the Big Four were all loaves of bread, Slayer would actually be the stale one in the corner that's growing a little bit of mold. But then again, that's how Slayer fans like their bread. It's just a proven fact. Number 2, the John Bush era. Now, this is what we were talking about earlier. Now, after one of their most, popular albums were released, the band decided to dismiss Joey Belladonna, and John Bush joined the group. John Bush, of course, was formerly of Armored Saint at the time. Armored Saint had just dissolved, and he became the new singer of Anthrax. And what followed were a couple of really inconsistent albums in the minds of many people. Those being Sound of White Noise, Stomp 442, Volume 8, The Threat Is Real, and then, of course, in the after the turn of the millennium, we had We Have Come For You All, which was considered to be more of a return to form. However, the first three are considered to be vastly different than what the band was able to accomplish during their classic age in the 1980s all the way up into the 1990s with Persistence of Time. So this was one that was seen immediately as a turning point or a turn-off point for many fans. Consider the Blaze Bayley era for Iron Maiden. How many people are willing to dismiss the X Factor as a brilliant album just because it's not Bruce Dickinson at the helm? Consider Judas Priest with Ripper Owens, even though he did a hell of a job with the two albums that he was on, Jugular and Demolition. There are some folks that are just unwilling to really consider him part of the fold. Or consider any popular singer that has been instantly replaced and was not named Ronnie James Dio, considering Ronnie James Dio just gets universal love for what he's done with Black Sabbath, basically revitalizing that group after Ozzy's departure. But with the John Bush era, this is not seen with so much favor, mainly because it did constitute a little bit of a change in style, and based around that, purists were unwilling to really accept this little minute change, even though it was one that was not very large. It was just one that treaded a little bit more toward what they considered to be alternative metal. But you take a look at Metallica, you take a look even at Flotsam and Jetsam from the 1990s, and there was definitely a little bit of a lean there, and that could also go back into those sellout words that perhaps the band sold their musical sound a little bit just to try to remain relevant with their brand new singer. Either way, this is a way for a lot of folks to stay away from the band. That's a lot of ways, but it is also a reason why it still should be explored, considering it's an interesting era, and there are a couple of gems within that construct of albums. And then there's number 1, probably the most obvious one, the one I was not shocked to see at all, considering I hear it almost every single day of my life. Anthrax does not belong in the Big Four. Now, here's the first thing that I will say about this. If you really think that the members of Slayer, Metallica, Megadeth, and Anthrax just decided one day prior to them all getting signed that they are going to construct this master plan, and they were going to be known as the Big Four, and Anthrax was going to be in there, and they were going to be the piss-off band, the one in which everybody takes a look at, sounds a little bit different from the remaining 3, and just decides they really don't belong there, and it's just going to be this big ol' in-joke. They're going to have a gigantic hardy-har-hee-har, and it's all going to be at the expense of the fans. That's not how it kind of went down. It was instead of lumping that was really put together, and it's instead something that should be sort of respected as opposed to lauded. Sure, Anthrax does sound a little bit different, and Anthrax has attempted a couple of things that are different than their Big Four brothers. But this is a band that is just as important for the era of thrash metal, considering they were a group that was at the top. They were one that was seen as one of the elite of the genre, and that's the reason why the Big Four was really assembled. They were the 4 elite bands of the time whenever it came to sales, whenever it came to image, whenever it came to really representing what thrash metal was all about. And you can't just deny Anthrax's accomplishments simply because you don't think they belong within the other 3. Now, sure, there are some folks that say that Exodus would make a much better pick for the Big Four, and while I tend to agree with that on, keeping the sound similar, Exodus was a group that has gotten legendary status really as a combination of what they did in their first era and in recent times, ever since Tempo of the Damned and onward, just releasing classic after classic. So this is almost one where if you wanted to have some late season inclusions, maybe pick up another relief pitcher, maybe throw in Exodus if you really want to. But Anthrax belongs in the Big Four. But a lot of folks, considering they sound so different and they like their thrash only one way, absolutely despise Anthrax based around their inclusion of the Big Four. They actually find it repelling, almost like they are magnets that were destined to be far away from one another. North versus North. It never, ever works. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. 5 reasons why people hate Anthrax. And with that, the Big Four has been concluded. You have Fan Appreciation Week to thank, or thank your fellow fan for requesting this 5 reasons video. If you have a suggestion for which the next one should be, you should definitely leave that in the comments below. And also, if there were any reasons that you think were missed, leave them in the comments as well. My name is coverkillernation, and we will return next week and roast and toast and burn to a crisp another group via 5 reasons why people hate them. Take care.